And welcome back, rugby fans, once again to Rugby411. I'm your host, as always. My name is Joshua Shibata, and boy, has it been an exciting week of MLR action. Week number 8 in the books, and we have a lot of shakeup going on in our power rankings. As always, again, guys, if you're new to my power rankings, they're based not on just your win-loss records of the teams. It is based on purely what is going on the pitch, who you play against, who you defeated, whether you're at home or away, whether you're on a hot streak or you're on a losing streak. That's why sometimes you'll see some teams that are higher on my power rankings than they are on the official standings in the Major League Rugby Western and Eastern Conferences. It adds a little bit of talking points. It makes it a lot of fun, especially to debate about. Always interesting to hear everyone's take on it. Not everybody will be happy about it or agree with it, but again, it's what makes it a lot of fun to discuss. So, a lot of shakeup, as I mentioned before, especially in this week, because we had some of the top teams, coincidentally enough, all in the Western Conference, facing off against each other, a few upsets as well. So let's get into it. The bottom ranking teams pretty much stayed the same. Number 12, the team from the north, the Toronto Arrows, who finally were able to play at home at York Lions Stadium. Unfortunately, suffering a heartbreaking loss to the reigning, defending MLR champions, the New York Ironworkers, losing 27-29, a 2-point loss to New York. I was very impressed watching that game at how tough Toronto played. It might be because they're at home. It might be because, again, New York, oddly enough, has been really a team struggling on the road. Toronto kind of taking advantage of it, but just coming up short. Big shout out to Deshaun Bowen, who came off of the academy side to play for Toronto Arrows, got his first start, and boy, did he impress. A former Canadian sevens player, and he has, as I like to say, that sevens speed. Really was impressive. Just really took advantage of the opportunity given to him. A hat trick in his debut game. Unfortunately, Toronto not able to provide the win for Deshaun, but man, he is going to be a player to watch out for in the future. He looked impressive. Again, Toronto came in very close at the end because of a yellow card by New York, by Sam Malcolm. But in the end, Toronto just came up short. It was a great game, very impressive. We'll see if Toronto can turn it around. They have a couple more games being played at home. They could end up moving out of the basement, but right now they are at the number 12 spot. Number 11, the Dallas Jackals had a bye, so they don't move. I don't feel good about moving a team that's on a bye up or down, so they stay at the number 11 spot. Still at number 10, the Chicago Hounds, the new kids on the block. Boy, they, again, there's been a few surprising teams for me coming in from the preseason into the actual season. I really did feel Chicago would have a much better team, or at least a better record. They have an impressive team, but they're just not able to put it together. A lot of potential on that team, just not able to get the wins in. Losing this week to New England Free Jacks, 19-31. It was, a pretty lopsided game. Some also bad news for Chicago. Luke Beecham and Julian Dominguez, both of them were hurt during the game, had to leave in the middle. We'll see what happens, whether or not they can come back for next week. But man, those are two very impressive weapons that are possibly going to be gone from the Chicago Hounds roster. Chicago, they also have a lot of tackling issues as well. The defense is not playing very well. Again, in this game, the New England Free Jacks were able to score almost willingly. And Chicago, for their offensive power, just have no answer on the defensive side, which is really hurting Chicago a lot. Now, by the halftime, they were able to lead by 2, but unfortunately in the second half, a yellow card by Chris Mattina, the fullback for Chicago, allowed New England to score 2 quick tries. And even though Chicago started the surge back, a beautiful kick pass try by Paula Bellicana on New England pretty much put the game away. And again, Chicago fell to New England 19-31. Moving on, there is a little bit of a switch with the next two teams, and because they played against each other, I'm going to introduce them both. Sliding down from the number 8 spot to number 9, Old Glory DC, who end up losing to the number 9 team, who moved up to number 8, Rugby ATL. In a pretty exciting game, pretty close game too. 27-35 was the score for Rugby ATL. First of all, big shout out to the very beginning. Try of the week for sure. A in between the legs pass to set up a try by, I believe it was Tavita Bedell for the Rugby ATL. Go find that. Again, all these games, replays can be seen on the Rugby Network. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the try of the week, but it was a beautiful pass for Rugby ATL. Rugby ATL was up really early at the beginning, within 30 minutes, 20-0. Really putting a number on Old Glory. But then Monson and Bedell on Atlanta both got yellow cards. There were a bunch of yellow cards in this game, setting up Old Glory to have the two-man advantage. They were able to score a couple tries, but then Rugby ATL started to come back. Very last second, Rugby ATL, it looked like Rugby ATL was putting the game away, but then literally within the last 5 minutes of the game, Old Glory was starting to put a comeback, back-to-back tries. One of them scored by Threaten Palermo, allowed Old Glory to be back within 7, but then unfortunately, just time was not on Old Glory's side, and Rugby ATL was able to hold on and keep the game out of Old Glory's reach. It was a very exciting game at the very end, but ATL was able to hold on, and because they beat Old Glory, they move up one spot. Mentioned before, number 7 is going to be the New York Ironworkers. As I mentioned before, they put a very good game against Toronto Arrows, barely defeating Toronto Arrows, only winning by 2. Honestly, I was debating whether or not to slide them down because of the performance. Again, winning only by 2 against the bottom team, not too impressive for New York. Again, the team that's kind of struggles on the road. We'll see what happens in their next game. Also, seeing to watch out for Jack Hyten, their very talented fly half, unfortunately got injured during the game. It sucks because Jack Hyten is one of the star players for New York. Last year when they won the Shield, has been struggling with injuries. He just came back from an injury at the beginning of the season. Unfortunately, goes down again. Fortunately for New York, they have a backup in the name of Sam Windsor, who still holds currently the record of the most points scored by any player in Major League Rugby history. Not a bad guy to have as your backup fly half. But again, Jack Hyten, a very talented player, unfortunately had to leave the game early. Hopefully he'll come back ready to play by next week. Mentioned before, at the number 6 spot is your New England Free Jacks, who beat down Chicago 31-19. Not much to say that I haven't said, except for another injured player, Jason Potras, who is the talented fly half for the Free Jacks, taking over for the Bodine Waka, who was the best player last year, I believe, for Major League Rugby, left to go to Japan. I felt with that loss, New England was going to struggle this year. Jason Potras has come out of nowhere to literally fill the huge shoes of Bodine Waka and has done a great job of it. Unfortunately, now he is hurt. Reese McDonald had to come in to replace Jason Potras. Fortunately for New England, they didn't have to have a lot to defeat Chicago. Reese McDonald was okay off of the tee, 2 for 4, but he did provide a beautiful kick pass to Paul Badekana to seal the win for New England against Chicago. But again, Jason Potras not being able to play, that might be something to watch out for and see if that affects New England a lot as the season goes forward. Now again, I don't like moving a team up or down when they're on a bye, but unfortunately because of what happened with the top 4 teams, I had to move NOLA Gold, the hottest team that was taking a bye this week, to get a little bit of rest. They were the number 4 spot, but just because, again, of everything that went on in the top 4, I had to slide them down even though they didn't play at all, which I know sucks because, again, NOLA is one of the hottest teams right now in the season. But so much going on with the top 4 teams. I had to move them. And let's talk about why. First, we had the game between the Houston SaberCats and the Utah Warriors. Utah going into SaberCat territory and pulling off a huge win, 30-23. I was very shocked by this because Houston has looked like a very dominant team, especially playing at home at SaberCat Stadium. Utah a little bit streaky. Also, too, Utah playing without Joe Mano, who is the top try scorer currently for Major League Rugby, as well as Paul Asike, a Eagles player, a very talented winger. Both of them out, but man, Utah looked impressive in this game, scoring tries super early. Houston looked really lackadaisical, oddly enough. Supposedly, according to the commentators, Houston traveling back from their game last week, they got in late on Sunday, so only had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to really practice. Apparently, it didn't go very well. A lot of beat up players, a lot of fatigue, and again, it really showed on the pitch as Utah really ran away with this game. 20 unanswered points in the second half, giving Utah the win. I do have to put a shout out to Dom Aquina. Dom Aquina for Houston looked very impressive in the game. There are moments that he was able to almost score a try. Unfortunately, his try was called back due to I believe a forward pass that prevented that try from scoring. Near the end of the game, Houston did look like they were coming back-to-back tries by Zapata and Nick Boyer, but there was a moment where Houston looked like they could have at least tied the game up, maybe possibly win. But in the end, when they were on the 5-yard line, there was a penalty. They should have went for, in hindsight's 50-50. They could have went for the line out to throw the ball in. Instead, they decided to go for the quick tap to run the ball in. Fortunately, as they ran the ball into the try area, ball was knocked on, and the game was over from there. They might have had a better chance to try to go for the line-out maul, then score, but we'll never know. But unfortunately, Houston dropping down to Utah. So Houston sliding down one spot from the number 3 to the number 4, and then Utah moving from the number 5 spot over New Orleans, over Houston, to move into number 3, which I'm very impressed by with that. And then we had the game of the week between the number 1 and number 2 teams, Seattle versus San Diego, old school rivals from the beginning of Major League Rugby, playing in Seattle at Starfire Stadium. And again, such a hard place to beat Seattle in their own home. It's such a loud place, a loud stadium, that 16th man is an actual thing. But in the end, San Diego was able to pull off the win 23-20 to move into that number 1 spot from the number 2 to topple down Seattle. Not only topple down Seattle, but give Seattle their very first loss of the season. The record that the LA Guiltinis have, 6 straight wins to start the season, is still intact. Seattle also 6, not able to break that 7th win. San Diego giving Seattle their very first loss. It was a very good game. San Diego, I felt, and even the commentators are kind of talking about this, the reason San Diego won was because they pretty much out-Seattled Seattle in Seattle. Seattle known for their Seattle seawall, their big defense, especially at home. San Diego was almost just as defensive, if not more so, completely preventing Seattle from scoring any points. And then once San Diego got the lead, 23-20, they really put the screws into Seattle. A brace by Nate Osberger allowed San Diego to take the lead. And again, their defense completely shutting Seattle off. Seattle couldn't score. And in the end, San Diego, with the very impressive win over Seattle, moves from the number 2 spot to number 1. Seattle sliding down to number 1. So, there are your power rankings. It's, no surprise, in my opinion, that I feel the top 4 teams are all from the West. Very competitive conference, if not the tougher conference this season. But again, NOLA had the bye. New England is looking good, but we'll see what happens with Paul Charles being out of the season. New York has been struggling. We'll see if Atlanta can kind of bounce back. But right now, the elite of the league, in my opinion, are the Western Conference teams, the top four. Man, that conference is going to be tough for either the Chicago Hounds or the Dallas Jackals to try to even move up. And it will be tough to see which of these 3 of 4 teams are able to make the playoffs because there's only 3 spots this season. So one of these teams are not going to make it, and it's going to be exciting to see who that will be. So, moving on from there. As always, let me know what you think about my power rankings in the comments, and also chime in to tell me who you feel should be at the top and what you feel should be at the bottom. Let's go over, of course, our overall rankings in the Super Brew MLR Rugby 411 Pick'ems. And again, it was an interesting week because of what I feel are 2 upset games. Let's see how the rankings went. Bam! So, number 1, congratulations, San Diego, California guy, SD Cal guy, winning the week with the Golden Cap, 5.5 points. It should be mentioned that pretty much everybody, or at least the top leaders in this pool, all missed the 2 games that I mentioned, these 2 upsets. So everybody was 3 out of the 5 got correct. 2 of those games lost. The reviewer 812 comes in at second. The reviewer 81 came in second with 5.25 points. I came in third, 4.83. John Hawkins, 4.5. Harry and James, 6117, came in at fifth, tied for 4.33 points. Now, at the bottom, unfortunately, Brandon B-Dog did not put any picks in. Come on, Brandon. I know that you kind of came in late, so you're on the bottom, but don't give up now. There's no way you're going to move up unless you put in some picks. But getting the wooden spoon, Mr. Rugby, 1.5 points, unfortunately. But it should be noted, and I hate to say this, Coop, but I'm just pointing it out, is USA Rugby League and Union fan who's been on a hot streak this season, unfortunately this week, near the bottom. Let's go to the overall rankings. Bam. And right now, MSDRFC 83 is still in first place, but just barely holding on, 56.33 points. Because of him getting the Golden Cap this week, SD Cal guy moves up a spot to 52.33. He's just behind Matt in first place by 4 points. And then sliding down a spot because he was so low this week, USA League Rugby Union fan unfortunately drops down to 48.83. Harry stays in fourth at 48.66. And then moving up a spot, John Hawkins, 48.33. But it should be noted that everybody's moving in on Matt. SD Cal guy is only 4 points away, and then pretty much everybody else is only 8 points away. So it really is anybody's game still in our Super Brew pool. So again, Brandon B Dog 82, don't give up just yet. You have a chance to make it to the top, but you definitely won't be able to move out of the basement unless you put in your picks. So make sure you do that. But yeah, that is our week in review. It was an exciting week, and I'm really excited for the next coming week. Week number 9, we're at the halfway point of the season. I can't believe how quickly it's gone. And as always, I do appreciate you guys watching my videos throughout the MLR season. It will be exciting and fun. So again, thank you very much for watching my video, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the pitch.